Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Democratic View. I'm the hostess. My name is Phyllis Italiano, and today I have with me a man who is going to talk about an issue that many of us have been very, very involved with. His name is Dr. Peter Wolf. Thank you for coming, Doctor.
Thank you for inviting me.
And we want to find out a little bit about you before we get into this actual subject. So tell me where you were born and raised and schooling.
Okay.
I like to know that sort of thing. I model myself after Charlie Rose. He doesn't model himself after me, but I model.
Well, you can't be sure. I'm from New Orleans. I was born in New Orleans.
Really?
I'm a sixth generation member of a family in New Orleans.
Wow.
And I've written a memoir about that came out last summer that got tremendous reviews all over the country. So that's where I'm from. As far as education goes, I went to school in New Orleans until 10th grade. Then I went to Exeter, then I went to Yale, and then I have a PhD from the Institute of Fine Arts of NYU, studying the architecture, urbanism, planning, and history of architecture.
Exeter, that's where they went from the school, the private school I taught at, called Rippowamasisquoi.
Is that
in
right?
Bedford Village.
Yeah.
Many of them went to Exeter.
Really? Yeah.
Yes.
Well, it was boot camp. It was educational boot camp. After a nice, quiet, peaceful school in New Orleans, or just outside of New Orleans.
Gee, that must have been a great place to grow up, New Orleans.
It was wonderful. Yeah. And it was.
I grew up in the Bronx.
Well,
It wasn't quite as musical. But anyway, the topic of that we're going to really talk about is our airport. East Hampton owns the airport. As a matter of fact, it's right over there.
right.
And we know that I think the first time I ever was really aware of how it affected everybody was at a board meeting maybe a couple of years ago when all of a sudden there were people from Southold talking about the East Hampton airport. And I thought, my God, that airport is affecting them way over there across the Peconic Bay? You know, how does that happen? And also, I must admit that I, living in the Springs, a little bit away from here, became so much more conscious of the sounds. I happen to be one of these people who stays up late.
Right.
And 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, Fridays, Sundays, it's amazing the sounds that I hear and say, oh my God.
Right.
It's really been astounding, the growth and the way it has become so much more a contentious issue here.
Absolutely.
And then we had that unbelievable meeting right here at LTV where I guess I must have gotten here 2 minutes after it was ready to really begin. I couldn't even find a parking space.
Yeah.
And couldn't find a seat.
Right.
I had to watch it in the control room.
Yeah. Right.
It was 400 people. I was amazed, holy mackerel, and listening to it and hearing people from all over the East End talking how this airport bothers them.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, you touch on a lot of important topics, and your awareness, being just a couple of years old, is, I think, shared by a great many people, and that speaks to the increased traffic that's documented. We know how much it has increased over the last 2, 3, 4 years, and especially the last 2 years. I was a senior advisor to the comprehensive plan when we did the East Hampton comprehensive plan, town plan,
Yes, I know
that
it.
came out in 2005. and we thought about everything that had to do with the community. The airport was a minor issue in 2005. We recommended that flights be regulated, that there be curfews, that there be noise and sound controls, but it wasn't a major issue. If we were doing the same thing in 2014, it would be headline first item practically, not just for the town, but for the region, as you say. The intensity is just phenomenal. You're probably aware that just in this year, in 2014, from the beginning of the year through August, the end of August, how many complaints do you think there were filed on the telephone? There were 20,000 complaints. And that's from people who go to the trouble to pick up the phone,
You're right.
deal with their pad, touchpad the thing, choose 1, 2, or 3, wait for that. So they go to a lot of trouble. And
You bet, because you know what? I don't do that
yeah,
very often.
and you're bothered by it.
Yeah, and I'm bothered.
And that's
You're right.
20,000 just in 2014 through August. Wow. Imagine how many more people wished or didn't pick up the phone.
Like me.
Like you, over and over again, week after week. What's happened is the airport's become a regional contamination that we have to deal with. It's not Ebola, but it's affecting and infecting the lives of so many people. And that's why I got interested in it as a planner and as a civic-minded person, just thinking we have to face this. And we have to face it in a constructive way and deal with what can be done to make this airport acceptable to the community at large regionally.
So one of the things that the administration did when they took office in January was Larry Campbell very wisely put Kathy Burke-Gonzalez, who has that kind of organizational skills, who actually divided her meetings and her committee into parts. And they came up with certain reports, one of being is that the airport actually can be quite self-sufficient.
Absolutely.
And that was a very important step forward. I can hear Peter Wadsworth, talking about how, we really did not.
Well, it's crucial because the airport's a useful facility in some ways, certainly for emergency purposes and other purposes.
Sure.
And it had to be proven that it could be self-sufficient so that the FAA did not have to be involved, so that you could see from a municipal management and municipal finance point of view that FAA money was not necessary. That was proven by all the people who worked on the finances and accepted by all the parties at interest. So you're pointing out something extremely important, because this may not be understood really by everybody listening and to the community at large. Until the FAA is no longer at interest in the airport, local regulation is not possible. At the end of this year, at the end of 2014, if no more FAA money is accepted in the few months we have left, the agreements between the town and the FAA will principally expire. There's some remaining, but the basic ones will expire, meaning the town, which owns the airport, as you said in your introduction,
Yes.
will now have the right, once again, to regulate its airport. When we did the comprehensive plan in 2005, we said the town needs to regulate its airport, but it couldn't. Now it can adhere to the comprehensive plan's admonitions and do what's right, which is regulate the airport. And we can get into what regulation means, and there are a lot of people with a lot of different opinions about it. But the threshold is no more FAA money, so that the town has the legal right to then make whatever proposals and finally pass whatever ordinances it wants to regulate the airport. We're very close. It's a very exciting time. And this new town board is really, as you say, with Kathy and others, has really focused on this and is trying to do something that they know affects adversely the town and the region.
We know that this is a great resort area, and people want to come here in those months, which those of us who live here start to shake when they're coming. But nevertheless, in order for it to continue to be that way, to be the place that people want to come, there's a lot of things you have to do. I mean,
Absolutely.
I'm very much involved in things like water quality and things like that. Those are my real issues. I think of myself as the Joan of Arc of East Hampton. I'm trying to save it, you know.
Well, this is as significant as water quality.
Absolutely.
If
This is a
people,
life quality issue.
Yeah.
Do I want to sit on my deck and
right, it's an environmental issue
Right.
at the same level as water quality. It affects everybody's life, or almost everybody's life. And people have a right to quiet enjoyment
Yes.
at their properties. And so it is basic. It's become basic. Years ago it wasn't. Recreational flying is not that intrusive.
Yes.
Small aircraft are not that intrusive. That's what the airport was used for. Local folks that had a plane and enjoyed flying. It's the jets, and it's principally the helicopters that, well, statistically, listen to this, of those 20,000 complaints, when you then parse them, what kind of complaints were they? In the town of East Hampton, over 50% of the complaints were about helicopters. And in the region, over 70% of the complaints were helicopters. And why is that? It's because they hover, they're low, they're very noisy, and they take a long time to get out of their impact area. Well, their impact area is wherever they are, but out of our impact area. So helicopters have made a big difference. And now with, Blade and Uber, Uber has a helicopter service, Blade has one. We're just at the beginning if we don't do something about this. We're just at the beginning
Right.
of the intrusion.
Yes.
And air flight will be more and more voluminous as time goes on.
And the truth of the matter is that when we watch a helicopter in the movies, they go up like this and down like that. But that's not what they really do.
No.
They don't do that at all.
Yeah.
They go like this and take a long time
Yeah.
doing it and make, oh my God,
Yeah.
so much noise doing it.
Well, something none of us are thinking about yet, and I've just begun thinking about it because of some court decisions in California. What about drones? Are we going to have to also think about drones and how much noise do they make? I don't know, but they fly very low. And they are becoming now, certain corporations, and particularly in Hollywood, have gotten the right to fly drones over parts of California for movie-making purposes. And now there's all this question about delivery of packages, delivery of mail, possible, real estate agencies that use drones to photograph. We haven't started to think about this.
I mean, Google Maps isn't good enough for that? That's
So
outrageous.
I'm beginning to think when we deal with regulation after the first of the year, why not seriously incorporate drones as an aspect
Absolutely.
of what we have to think about and try to confront?
So how did this mushrooming of all of this kind of enormous amount of jet and helicopter, how did that all get so started? I mean, I know I owned my house for 12 years, and I do not remember it my first years I was out
No,
here.
it wasn't. I've owned mine for over 40, and I can attest personally to the increase in traffic. It's a lot of different things. It's gotten less expensive. Take helicopters. There's been a great increase in wealth. There's a great increase of wealthy folks who like to come here when they want to. There's now sharing services that are being promoted by some of the helicopter companies, agencies, and so forth. The same way house sharing goes on, another kind of sharing. Well, air flight is being shared. So there's just a lot of different forces that are allowed. And then there's the traffic issue, the
Yes.
highway traffic.
Yes, I know.
And that dissuades people who can afford just to jump right over it. So
They don't want to drive in their car and then do just this, sit in the back, get a chauffeur and do that instead.
Well, so there are a lot of forces that are leading this way, and the trouble is, it's only a very few people who are disturbing a very, very large number of people in the whole region, and so something in the name of fairness and equity in terms of just life has to be done to regulate the traffic.
So we had this big meeting, and what's the result? I mean, I read all of what they came up with, but I'm asking you, what is the result?
Well, I think there have been some extremely important results. The meeting, for any of your viewers who don't know, was about 3 hours long. I think 52 people spoke to the town board just on the subject of the airport and airport regulation. Almost everybody that spoke was in favor of regulation of some sort or other. One or two might have been opposed to any regulation. What's happened because of that meeting and others that have gone on regionally is that all of the other communities in our neighborhood have now passed ordinances or resolutions that are encouraging the town board of East Hampton, which has the control and the power and owns the airport, to do something about it. You know, that old phrase, don't just stand there, do something. And that's one of the things that's come out of this. Very specifically, East Hampton Village passed a wonderful ordinance after that meeting, enforcing all the ideas that came up, saying this has become an environmental concern to its whole constituency, that something needs to be done to regulate the airport. There needs to be curfews, there needs to be this and that and the other. And it was a very formal resolution that cited other communities that have regulated their airport, including Southampton, which has regulated, doesn't have FAA money and has regulated its heliport. So very good things are happening at the government level. And that's really important because the town board needs to see that they are at the epicenter of a whole region that is encouraging them to do something in the public, for the public good. And then the other thing that's come out of it is increasing awareness among individuals who are writing letters, calling in, talking to one another. You may know, I think you do know, that a friend of mine and I have, as just individuals, have written letters to a great many people who live in East Hampton town, asking them if they are in favor of airport regulation and what kinds. And we've gotten back over 500 signed cards with names, addresses, email addresses, and so forth, imploring the town to regulate this airport.
I did do one of those cards.
These are people who have never, ever spoken up before about any town matter. And we were encouraged by some town government members and also by friends to reach out to these people who really had been rather silent but very disturbed. And we're going to present that information to the town board or to members of the town board this month, later in this month.
So they haven't really come out and made the decision to not take any more FAA money. Let's also remember something about the FAA. The FAA has the ability to, and should, monitor what goes on in the sky. What we're talking about is what happens down here at the airport level.
Right.
And that's what we want to make sure that the town has control of.
Right.
So, did they make a decision yet?
Well, let me say two things. One is that the FAA has another goal, not just to regulate, but to expand airport activity. They, like every public agency, wants to see their domain grow. And so they have favored not just monitoring, but growth of air traffic and airports. So we need to keep that in mind, too. Now, to your question, the town has not promised that between now and December 31st that it won't accept any more FAA money. But all the indications are that they have no intention of doing so. So that's one level. The second level is regulation itself. Has there been any movement on that?
Right.
And I'm sure in various back rooms, ideas are being generated about what would make sense in terms of regulation, what is fair, what is equitable to the community at large, what's legally possible, and so forth. I know that those conversations and investigations are going on, but there's been no proposals put forward by the town. I suspect right after the first of the year, when they have the right to do so, the town will come up with its own suggestions, maybe for public comment, I don't know, their own suggestions about what kind of regulations to impose. And I know people that are involved in this on the private level, like me and many others, are also working on that.
So how would we, I mean, if it is in the control of the town of East Hampton, how would we be able to regulate? Do we have to set up some kind of a group to then regulate? I know Brundage has now retired, and there's a new man who's come in to sort of do the everyday managing of the airport, but the actual big decisions to be made, like didn't they recently raise the price of, I think, the gasoline or something like that? Would the town set up some kind of governing body?
Well, there are two parts of this. One is, if you think of it as, say, a company, the policymakers, the executives, are the town board. They have the right to set the policy. That is, what will the regulations be? What is the price of services and so forth? Then there's the managers, and the manager is the paid manager of the airport. His job or her job is to see that it functions smoothly, that it functions within the regulations that have been set by the town, and report any problems that come out. Now, you raise a kind of special question that is also being considered, is should there be after the rules are made, first by the town board, should there be an authority of some kind? Should there be some kind of committee that oversees everything on behalf of the town board? Because it's a pretty complicated operation.
It certainly is.
And I think legitimately some town board members are concerned that the airport could drown the town board's agenda if there wasn't some intermediary of some kind.
Yeah.
Then the question comes, who are those people? How are they nominated or elected, approved of, observed, monitored, all of that. It's all got to come forward in time. The first step is the town take over control of the airport and create the regulations that will stop the noise. Because nobody objects to anything but the noise. And the noise is the issue, and the noise is the thing that can be controlled.
Well, it isn't only the noise, too. There is also the pollution of all of that.
Well, there's the pollution, too, and the disturbance of wildlife, which
Yes.
we know is true, and
Yes.
the upset of even water bodies from air flight. There's a lot of ecological consequences.
Absolutely. And Lena, have you taken a picture yet of the flights out? Because it looks like a textile design.
I know.
But it is not. It is the amount of flights that are going in and out.
Yeah, it's color-coded for the inbound and the outbound flights over a period of time right over the East Hampton Airport, and not a very long period of time. This was shown at the public hearing you're talking about to the town board, and I just thought it'd be interesting to bring it in and have it
It is.
available.
It's an amazing picture. It
Yeah.
really is. I mean,
Yeah.
I thought it was some kind of fabric
Well,
design.
you could think of it as your brain on fire from the
Holy
noise.
That's a lot of pollution. That's a lot of
Yeah.
noise.
Yeah,
And
so-
that is something that we do have to have a handle on, and we
Yeah.
have to be. And so we're looking forward to that and hoping that, I have a lot of confidence in these people. I think they're going to make the right decision. I hope they are.
This board has done a wonderful job facing the issue and trying to be fair-minded about it and hear out everybody's concerns and interests.
Yes.
And then they're going to try to deliberate and arrive at some proposals. They've been wonderful about it. And Larry's been a great leader in this, and Kathy has been phenomenal in thinking through rational ways to address this problem.
Yes.
She's been
Yes,
great.
she did a masterful job of dividing the problem up into sections.
Yeah.
So that you know, there could be a reasonable way of looking at each aspect and coming up with some ideas and solutions and working. And by the way, there were some people on those committees that were
Yes, oh,
diametrically
absolutely.
opposed to each other,
Absolutely.
and yet they worked things out.
Yeah, no, that's reality. There are lots of sides to this issue. And for you viewers who don't know, Kathy Burke Gonzalez is a town board member one of whose assignments is liaison between the town board and the airport.
Yes.
And she's been in charge of trying to figure this out.
A former president of Springs School Board.
That's right, yeah, yeah.
Springs is where I come from.
Right.
And, well, I mean, we look forward to finding out, you know, what's going to happen at 12:01 next year.
Well, I encourage all your viewers to let the town board know how they feel about this issue.
Yes.
Write letters.
Yes.
If you have the hotline phone number and you're disturbed by aircraft, call.
Do it.
It really makes a difference.
I've written it down.
The statistics make a difference.
Yes.
And be proactive. I have lived my life as a planner and as a community resident believing in speaking up.
And
people
you've
should.
done a wonderful job, I
Thank you very
might add.
much.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Well, it's
I
a
really
pleasure to be with
appreciate
you.
it. Yeah.
Thank you.
Very.